Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Susan Stern, and I have the privilege of being the CEO for Weizmann Canada. It gives me great pleasure to welcome all of you here today and to thank you for making the time to be with us. We have so many people participating from coast to coast, and I promise you're in for an informative, inspiring, and insightful presentation. Food is one of our most basic needs, which is why nutrition is so critically important to each and every one of us. As we all know, the past year has changed so many aspects of our lives, including how and what we consume. In fact, a report out of Dalhousie University last year found that early on in the pandemic, with the uncertainty of the situation, Canadians were stocking up on non-perishables. Since that time, we've shifted our consumption as we became more acquainted with our own kitchens and have been cooking more at home instead of going out to eat or ordering in. As a global trend, we're seeing this shift in food consumption, particularly in the last year, has also had significant implications in business here in Canada and around the world. This trend, combined with the fact that healthy eating typically tops our list of New Year's resolutions, makes today's presentation incredibly timely. One of the silver linings of this challenging year has been that the spotlight has never shone brighter on the vital importance of science to improve our lives. That's why I'm so very proud to host you here today, to share how Weizmann has played and continues to play a critical role in enabling scientific discoveries. For those of you who are new to the Weizmann family, welcome. The Institute has an over 70-year history at the forefront of scientific discovery, asking and answering some of the biggest questions facing humanity. Since 1964, Weizmann Canada has been helping to fuel these critical discoveries. The Weizmann Institute is ranked 8th in the world for research quality by the Center for Science and Technology Studies of Leiden University, the only non-American institute to rank in the top 10 among the likes of Harvard, Princeton, and MIT. Scientists at the Weizmann Institute continue to challenge current thinking in order to bring about a better tomorrow. And coincidentally, that's the theme of today's presentation, with both of our speakers challenging the way we think about and interact with a key element in our lives, food. Weizmann's Professor Eran Elinav has earned international acclaim for his major breakthrough related to the microbiome and personalized nutrition. And Neil Cuggy, President and COO of Goodfood, has built the company into a Canadian success story. We're also thrilled to have as our moderator for today's session, Steven J. Singer. Steven is a serial entrepreneur and a 20-year veteran in the natural food industry. In 1999, Steven co-founded Glutino Foods and went on to become a leader in the gluten-free food industry. In 2016, Steven founded Fody Foods, a digestive health food brand and North America's first certified low FODMAP food company, with products geared towards the millions of people with digestive sensitivities, including IBS. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Steven Singer, who will introduce our featured guest speakers.
Thank you so much, Susan, and thanks for the warm introduction. And most importantly, just it's an honor to be part of a Weizmann event. And so thank you for inviting me to moderate and host this and co-host this amazing event. It's, you know, nutrition is so important to me and to my career, and it's you know, meeting some of the people that are going to speak today, it figures that there's a lot of smart people out there that are going to help a lot of people live a much healthier life. And given the times that we've been through, I think nutrition is one of those things that we can count on to be our kind of our backbone to getting through all this. You mentioned my background, and so yeah, I've been in the natural food industry and the health food industry for about 22 years. That makes me sound a little bit old. I didn't have any of these gray things going on there back then. But the fun part of what I did in the last 20 years with, you know, close friends and colleagues was we trailblazed and helped a lot of people. We didn't just build brands and build businesses, but we helped millions of people that were dealing with dietary struggles, lifestyle struggles. And what we tried to do is bring back, quote, the normalcy for people to be able to have a pretzel, which ironically came from Israel, or an Oreo cookie that we made here in Canada with a partner, or a Ritz style cracker that we did. We worked with a top company in Italy. So we tried to bring back all what people loved in their food, and try to bring it back in a gluten-free way. And it's segues into what I do now, because one of the things that I love the most was building a food company and helping people at the same time. And I think you go to your strengths. So for what how I was kind of built in this industry was, let the scientists do the science, let the doctors be doctors, and let's the food entrepreneurs be food entrepreneurs. So we really rely on science, and we take the FODMAP research that's been done in Monash University, or U Michigan, or King's College in London, and we try to come up with foods that'll kind of help people avoid their trigger foods. So for Fody Foods, a company that's really built on IBS diet, the key for us is no garlic and no onion, and the amounts are very key. So it's not, you don't eliminate everything in your life, but what you do is you try to avoid the trigger foods, and you watch the quantities. And what ends up happening is, by following a low FODMAP diet, by watching what you're putting in your body, you eventually will avoid having those triggers, and you'll just feel better, and you'll be able to live a much more full and excited life. And I think it's so exciting because back in June, I watched this 60 Minutes piece that, quite frankly, blew me away. It was, you talk about probiotics, and you hear all these news, and what do I eat? What don't I eat? I'm sure a lot of the people that are joining us today are somehow confused. Do I eat this? It's not good for me, or that's not good for me. And FODMAP, I'm not supposed to have watermelon or an apple. That doesn't make any sense, or I thought avocado is good, but now they're telling me I can't have it. Should I load my body with probiotics? And I think what that 60 Minutes interview did for me was it really opened my eyes to understanding your own body, and listening and learning more about your specific makeup. And there's no better person to explain that than our first panelist. I think what Professor Dr. Eran Elinav has done has been nothing short of, just incredible. So I'm going to just introduce him, the MD and PhD from a Department of Immunology from Weizmann Institute. Professor Elinav's research focuses on deciphering the molecular basis of host microbiome interactions and the effects of such interactions on health and disease. His goal is to personalize medicine and nutrition. With Professor Eran Siegel, he is leading the Personalized Nutrition Project, a major research initiative in which they are able, for the first time, to predict a personalized blood glucose response to multiple foods using clinical and gut microbiota data for human subjects. Professor Elinav has published more than 200 publications in leading peer-reviewed journals. He is a Howard Hughes Medical Institute International Research Scholar, a Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation researcher, a senior fellow at the Canadian Institute for Advanced Research, CIFAR, an amazing Canadian connection there, Eran, a Fulbright scholar, and an elected member of the European Molecular Biology Organization. He is also the co-owner of multiple patents and spin-off companies. The one thing he has done is made me feel that I'm certainly, I have a lot of learning to do to get to Professor Elinav's level. So I'm going back to school after this webinar. Eran will share his research on his incredible research on the microbiome and how it interacts with health and disease, with the goal of personalizing medicine and nutrition. Welcome, Eran, and over to you.
Thank you, Steve, and thank you, Susan, for inviting me and for the very kind introduction. I'm very happy to be here with you, and I'm going to try and share my screen so we can talk a little bit about personalized nutrition and the microbiome. So, do you see my first slide?
No, we don't see your slides yet, but
You don't? Okay. Let's see. Let's try again.
here we go.
Okay. Now you should see it. Do you see it?
Yeah.
Fantastic. So thanks again for inviting me. And in the next 20 minutes or so I'll try to share with you our vision and our work in trying to transform nutrition and how we decide on our healthy nutrition in using science and medicine in a very rational manner to improve our health. As you've heard, I've been studying what we call the microbiome, which is this huge, immense, and poorly understood world of microbes that lives within our body from the moment we are born until the moment we die, and has been catching a lot of attention in the last decade as a revolution in the understanding of the human body in health and in disease. You can see here a picture that's, in my view, is worth 1,000 words, taken from a healthy gut of a healthy person. And you can see these bumps or these heels, which represent the normal lining of our gastrointestinal tract. And what you see above them is what looks like a carpet of shoelaces. These are our internal microbes, and this is our microbiome. And this picture could be taken from each and every one of your own guts. And you can appreciate how extensive this microbial culture within us is, and how intimately it is associated with the human body. And one concept that we discovered early on in our work and pioneered is that if we were to characterize each and every one of your own gut microbiomes, we would find that each of you has a unique signature of microbes within your body. And this is important because, as I'll try to convince you, we are increasingly seeing that these unique combinations of microbes are very important in determining our traits, our health, and our risk of developing a number of human diseases. And this uniqueness of the microbiome between different individuals is driven by many different factors which we're studying at the lab, including many environmental factors, including the ones that are depicted in this cartoon. But today I will be focusing on the most important factor which determines how our unique microbiome would be shaped, which is the diet that we eat. And when we started studying the diet and how the diet interacts with our microbes and how these interactions impact our health, of course, we had in the back of our mind, and especially mine being a physician, that this is especially relevant these days because we're facing a global epidemic, not the epidemic which we're all dealing with at the moment with one virus, but a different epidemic which has been developing for close to 100 years in front of our eyes, and it includes obesity, type 2 diabetes, hyperlipidemia, and many associated complications such as heart disease, which are drastically growing throughout the human population. And the nutrition seems to be one of the major explanations for this rapidly expanding set of diseases, but we really don't understand how this is carried out. So I started looking into the very old literature, medical literature, that forms the basis of everything that you and I do in our daily lives intuitively when we try to come up with what we hope would be a healthy diet for ourselves. And what I ran into is a concept which we intuitively follow, which includes the grades that are given two different foods or food components by one of different systems. And based on these grading systems, we, as a whole, try to rate diets as healthy or less healthy and change our diet accordingly. So for example, calories are one such grading system, giving different numbers to different foods and food components, and we try to mix and match our foods based on this criteria or grading system in order to improve our diet. An even more widely used grading system for foods is called the glycemic index. And take my word for it, any diet that you've ever tried, whether you went to a physician, to a dietitian, or you bought a book at the airport, is based in one way or another on this glycemic index grading system. And this whole system is based on small-scale studies that were performed in the 1970s, which included very small groups of healthy humans, usually 10 healthy humans, who were given an identical food, and then their blood sugar level was measured for 2 hours after they ate this food. So for example, if you were to take these 10 healthy human individuals and give them an identical piece of celery and measure their blood sugar levels, you would see something along this average black graph that you see in front of you, which spikes a little bit following the consumption of celery. This spike would be given a number, and this is the glycemic index of celery. Now, if you were to ask the same group of 10 individuals now to kindly eat an identical piece of chocolate cake, their average rise in blood sugar levels would look like something along the blue graph that you see here. And this higher average number would be declared as the glycemic index of chocolate cake. Now, if you look in your smartphones, you would find endless tables that provide glycemic index values to any food or food component on Earth. And take my word for it, any diet that you've ever tried is based in one way or another on this glycemic index method. Now here comes the big problem. When we repeated these experiments from the 1970s, but rather than including in them 10 healthy human individuals, we included 1,000 human individuals, and we measured them and their responses to identical foods, we were shocked to find that if we took these 1,000 people and gave them one of identical test foods, for example, 50 grams of glucose or an identical piece of white bread, and measured their blood sugar levels, their average response was exactly the glycemic index of that food. So the system itself is very accurate. But when we looked at the individualized response of these 1,000 people to the identical food they were eating, we found an unimaginable variability in their glucose spiking responses compared to one another. And this was true for identical test foods that we provided them, and it was true for thousands of real-life foods that we measured in these individuals that all features this huge variability in people's response, even when the foods were identical between different people. And this already intuitively can tell you that this concept, which we try to intuitively follow, of a one-size-fits-all diet that would be good for all of us, is inherently untrue. Because if your glycemic response to a given food is opposite to the one I experienced to the same food, then that food cannot be included in the healthy diet of both me and yourselves. And this gave rise to a very ambitious study, which we termed the Personalized Nutrition Project, in which we took these 1,000 individuals and we kindly asked them to give us a week of their lives. And during this week of follow-up, we collected an unparalleled amount of personalized data from these people. We sequenced and characterized their gut microbiome, because this is what we do in life. We performed blood tests on these individuals. We made them fill many questionnaires related to their background illnesses, to their eating and family histories. We measured these people. We developed a smartphone app for this project in which people filled out whatever they were doing during the week of follow-up, when they were going to sleep, when they were waking up, what they were eating, how much they were eating. And we connected each of these individuals to a continuous glucose monitor that measures your blood sugar levels every 5 minutes for an entire week. So in contrast to the studies in the 1970s that included 10 healthy individuals, each being measured 6 times in average for their blood sugar levels, here we had 1,000 individuals being measured 2,500 times each of these individuals for their blood sugar responses during a week of follow-up. But the really interesting work happened after the week of follow-up, when a very talented group of students took all of this data and generated artificial intelligence or machine learning based algorithms that are unique to each of the individuals and are aimed to predict that person's response to any given foods, including foods they've never consumed during the week of follow-up. And I will not bore you with the technical details, but the bottom line is that in contrast to what we do intuitively on a daily basis, which produces a very low ability to predict our true response to different food, we dramatically increased our ability to predict a person's response to any given food, which for the first time enabled to construct a rational and science-based personalized diet for each individual. Of course, this was very exciting for us, but it was now time to put ourselves to the test. So to prove that this really new concept, we recruited a new group of individuals that already suffered of what we call pre-diabetes. This is one of the most alarming part of this epidemic. These are individuals that already feature some disturbances in their blood sugar control. They're not yet full-blown diabetics. And it is estimated that around 40% of all adult individuals in the US, for example, are pre-diabetic, and they have an 80% chance of developing full-blown diabetes within the next decade of their life. So we took this group of pre-diabetics, we put them through our process, but this time we asked the computer to construct a set of personalized good diets or personalized bad diets for each of these individuals. Of course, the diets were different between individuals. We made sure that the good and the bad diets per individual were isocaloric, were the same in terms of their caloric content. And then we asked each person to eat his or her good diet for a week, and then his or her bad diet for a week while we extensively measured them. So just to give you an example of one of the participants, in that participant, the algorithm decided that a bad diet for her would include, for example, sushi, which we could never guess was bad for any person. And the good diet included hummus or ice cream. And then when we had that person eat her good and bad diets for consecutive weeks and measured her continuously, the result was striking. You can see in red what happened during the bad week, the week in which she ate sushi and corn, which was bad for her. You can see the spikes of blood sugar to almost diabetic levels. And you can see what happens in the good week in which she ate ice cream in green, and this graph completely flattened and the glucose spikes almost completely disappeared. When we took a different person, for example, in that case, the bad diet included peaches and grapes. Again, you couldn't guess without measuring. And the good diet, again, included hummus, which we regard as a good food, but also halva and croissant. And when that person ate his bad diet with these fruits that are not so good for him for a week, you can see that he spiked to almost diabetic levels in the red graph. While when that person changed to the good diet, the one that included some sweets and croissant in this case, the green graph was completely flattened. And this was true for all the people that we've measured in this validation trial. Of course, the next question is what happens in a long-term follow-up? This is the billion-dollar question, whether we can reverse the course of the transition of these huge populations of people that suffer from prediabetes into full-blown diabetes with its life-risking complications. And this is a study, a large-scale study that we've just completed and are about to publish, which includes 200 individuals, which were divided in this case into one half that was given the gold standard diet, the American Heart Association recommended diet, the one that your physician probably gives you. And the other half was given our algorithm-based diet, and we followed them for an entire year. And I'm not going to bore you with all the details, and you don't need to be a physician or a scientist to appreciate the results. You can see here an example of 3 different measurements of blood sugar control. You can see in red what happens when 100 people took the recommended gold standard diet. You can see that there is a mild improvement throughout the year in the glucose control and the glucose responses in these individuals. But when you compare it, the 100 people that consumed their personalized science-driven diet in green featured a more dramatic and a sustainable, a greater improvement and slowdown of this metabolic deterioration throughout a year of follow-up. Now, where do we go from here? We're engaged in many different follow-up studies. For example, one of the striking problems in fighting the obesity epidemic are children with obesity. Childhood obesity is becoming a huge unmet problem. 17% of America's children are formerly obese. We've tried very carefully to address this problem by measuring a group of children in Israel and in Italy and trying to tweak the personalized nutrition concept towards children. This is an ongoing study. In a different study, we're trying to assess the personalized responses to a very common set of ingredients that many of us are taking in their daily diet, which are artificial sweeteners, which we and now many others have discovered not to be inert, and in some cases may predispose to exacerbate it or to worsen diabetes. And we think that this response is also microbiome dependent and personalized, and we're studying this as well. And a third interesting study relates to a completely different disease, which is not a metabolic disease, but nonetheless, as a physician, I can tell you that many diseases are modulated or believed to be modulated by nutrition. We just don't know how to do this. So we chose one disease that's close to my heart called Crohn's disease. It's a form of an inflammatory bowel disease. And we're trying to develop a similar approach using personalized nutrition that would hopefully help to control the inflammation and tissue destruction that are hallmarks of this very common and cureless gastrointestinal disease. And with that short overview, I will thank you and thank the many people at my lab, including an amazing group of students coming from all over the world to engage in this journey. Our collaborators, Eran Elinav, my friend, who is an active collaborator on all of these personalized nutrition projects, and other collaborators, and of course, the Weizmann and many other foundations that are supporting our work. And I think I'll stop here. Thanks.
Wow, thanks so much, Eran. That was truly, truly incredible, and so much learning that we can all do from that. And I think that I know in our business, we're constantly telling people to that it's not one size fits all. Even if your GI puts you on a special diet, even if your dietitian tells you eat this or eat that, we need to really understand our own situations, our own microbiome, our own makeup, and because our bodies are ultimately going to react differently. And a food that might be good to one person might not be good to another, and it's extremely important for us to understand that. Before I introduce our second panelist, I just want to thank those who've already submitted questions. Following Neil's presentation, we will have a Q&A with both speakers. And if you have any questions, please submit them to Jan, Jan, at Weizmann.ca. So that's Jan at Weizmann, Weizmann.ca. Or you can, of course, type them in the chat function for the Zoom event. And now for our second panelist, who's quite frankly as amazing as Eran in a different way. But we should all be so proud to have this fellow Canadian on the panel today. Neil Cuggy, President, Chief Operating Officer, and Director of the Goodfood company. Neil has been the co-founder, President, and Chief Operating Officer of Goodfood since 2015, and has led the business to be the #1 online grocer in Canada. Prior to founding Goodfood, he co-founded an entrepreneurial investment firm called Montreal or MTL Capital LLC. Before founding MTL Capital and Goodfood, Neil worked in the investment banking division of RBC Capital Markets, where he worked on $5 billion plus of mergers, acquisitions, equity, and debt financings. He is a Montreal native, go Habs go, who comes from a long line of entrepreneurs. In 2018, he was named EY Entrepreneur of the Year. Neil will share industry insights and explain how his company approaches personalized nutrition. Goodfood is one of the largest Canadian food subscription services, delivering more than 4 million meals each month. Wow, I just could say that over and over again and just be in awe. And trading publicly on the Toronto Stock Exchange. Of course, we all should have bought that before COVID, but never too late, Neil. Welcome, and over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Steven. Thank you for Susan and the Weizmann Canada group for having me today. It's really an honor to be part of this. And Eran, I really love the presentation. I took lots of notes, and really inspiring the work that you guys are doing, and looking forward to getting my own diet mapped, and hopefully there's some croissants and chocolats in my future as well. So I'll throw up my slides. As Steven mentioned, Goodfood is a public company, so I'll try to be careful in what I say, but share as much details as possible on what I think the future of grocery holds in Canada. I'll start off with a little bit of background about myself and about the business. We started the company, my co-founders and I have two co-founders, in 2015. As Steven mentioned, we started in our apartment, and we really started the business out of a personal need. We were living in the Old Port area of Montreal, and as many of the Montrealers on the call know, there was very little grocery delivery, and there's very little grocery stores in general in the Old Port. That combined with the fact that we love to throw dinner parties, and we are true foodies, so love sharing our passion for cooking meals and sharing interesting ingredients and culinary adventures with friends and family, led us to found Goodfood. Early days were really exciting and interesting. As you can imagine, we did every job in the business. We packed the orders. We went to the market 3 o'clock in the morning to get the best stuff. Sometimes we'd have to go to the grocery store to buy stuff for orders as well. Really the full entrepreneurial story, and started in your garage type of thinking. After a little bit of reflection and running the business for a couple of months, we really started to realize that there were many Canadians that shared the same challenges as we did. In that, estimated that 80% of Canadians today, still at 4 p.m., don't know what they're going to have for dinner that night. And I'm sure if all of you guys look at your phones right now, you're texting your significant others, potentially less so during the pandemic, given that people are at home. But I know that my wife and I would text quite often at 4 o'clock saying, "Hey, what's for dinner? What do you want to do? Order, cook, whatever." So we really wanted to set out on a mission to help Canadians solve that problem. That was 5-6 years ago now. Today, on the right-hand side here, gives you an idea of where we're at. So we're delivering to over 300,000 Canadian households a week, doing about $500 million of sales, and our market cap is roughly $1 billion. Really proud to say that we employ over 4,000 people now. So this number is already a bit stale at 3,500, and growing weekly. We're still onboarding between 100 and 300 people a week across the country, across all of our facilities, given the demand for the product and service. So really exciting. And sorry for the slides being a little salesy. It is the investor presentation, so it comes from that piece of the business. To give you an idea of what we look like today, Goodfood has 7 facilities across the country, almost 600,000 square feet. This makes us the largest direct-to-home perishable delivery network in the country. So whether you want something that is stored at fridge temperature or freezer temperature, nobody has a larger direct-to-home network than us. We can reach 95% of Canadians on a same-day or next-day basis, and we continue to up the number of households that use the product on a weekly basis as well. We realized a couple of years ago that network is extremely valuable, and our customers trusted our culinary expertise to refer and recommend additional products. So once we built that relationship with our customers, we were really excited to be able to offer them other ways to fulfill either meal needs. So other than dinner, help them with lunch or breakfast. So we have a pretty extensive line of lunch and breakfast products that we manufacture as well as grocery items. This was all pre-pandemic, but our clients were, the average Canadian goes to the grocery store 2.5 times a week, and the average Goodfood client goes half a time a week. So you can imagine those 2 visits a week, how much extra time we free up in people's lives, and all the wonderful feedback that we receive from that. For the engineers in the audience, we invest a lot in automation. The food business is a challenging margin business for a lot of pieces of the supply chain, and the more machines, robots, and technology we can employ, the better. Shifting a little bit to the pandemic and kind of the future, one of the things that has become very clear is not only Canadians, but all consumers around the world have accelerated the adoption of e-commerce and e-commerce grocery specifically. For the past 3-4 years, we at Goodfood and the management team have been beating the table and telling everyone who wants to listen that the online grocery industry is a real thing, is here to stay, and provides a lot of value to our customers. And the numbers that a lot of the analysts and the research community would come out with was by 2023, the overall industry would be somewhere in the $3 to $4 billion range. To put that in perspective, the grocery industry in Canada as a whole is about 140 billion. And if you add restaurants on top of that, you get to about 200 billion. So very, very small fraction, 2% of the overall industry, despite the value that is created from time savings and potential cost savings as well. COVID's changed all that. That $3 billion, $4 billion number now is conservatively estimated at 25 billion. So everything's kind of been shifted forward by 3, 4, 5 years, depending on who you ask and how you calculate it, which makes it really exciting. From Goodfood's perspective, it means a lot more clients are open to trying the service. Once they try the service, we know that they're very excited about staying with us and the simplicity that we add to their lives. But it also means that there's more competition, which is also, in our opinion, a good thing. The more people that are using groceries online, the better it is for us to be able to stand out. Just on this slide, I wanted to mention a little bit about our strategy for approaching the Canadian grocery basket. So we are still best known for our ready-to-cook meals, or meal kits, as a lot of people would call them. We offer 50 different meal kits a week. We have a team of 15 chefs internally that are looking at all the data across the country. We're putting out a weekly cookbook to the 300,000 homes that we serve. We collect all the data on recipe ratings, culinary profiles, and preferences. We put that into menu design, and we use that to create a really delicious 50-item menu that changes on a weekly basis. So our recipe development process is very short, very data-driven, and drives an extremely complex supply chain and manufacturing to meet that. One of the things I would love to be able to do in the future is take the work that Professor Elinav is doing, map that into a customization, and give you even more than 50 choices for meals. Right now, we're a little bit more mass market than specific customization to dietary profiles, yet we do carry full vegetarian meals and options. We have a meal plan that's very similar to what a keto meal plan would be, and then a bunch of variety within that as well. So that's kind of how we customize that part of our offering. The rest of the grocery basket, when we look at all the data and understand what Canadians are actually buying, the average grocery store has between 20,000 and 40,000 different items that they're selling. 80% of the sales and profit of that store is generated by less than 20% of the goods. Pareto principle that we see all over the place. And we think we don't need to offer the full 100% of those grocery items to make customers shop with us on a weekly basis and have an amazing experience. You don't need a 1 liter mayo, a 500 ml mayo, a 750 ml mayo, and 3 different brands. You need really one mayo that's a good size and tastes amazing and has an excellent price. So with that philosophy in mind, we think we can complete the full Canadian grocery basket with less than 4,000 items. And we continue to add to that list on a weekly basis. Today, we're about 600 items, and we add somewhere between 10 and 40 items a week, depending on the week, and are really excited about the adoption rate and feedback that we receive on all these items. It gives us a chance to showcase artisanal providers from different parts of the country. It gives us a chance to work with large national brands that have a really established brand and profile. And Canadians are really, really receptive to getting it delivered to their house at essentially cheaper than what you would be able to do at the grocery store. Just on the last page, there's a little bit of words here, but high level, what we see in the future for Goodfood. and Canadians is as we continue to expand our offering online and the number of facilities that we have across the country, we'll be able to continuously grow the number of households that are with Goodfood on a weekly basis. Obviously accelerated by COVID, as I said, it's been a pretty wild ride for the last 10, 12 months, as it has been for other e-commerce players. I, for one, don't want to go and spend any time in line at a grocery store in Canada right now when it's -10 outside. So we anticipate more and more people shifting to online grocery and less trips to the grocery store, especially as we're able to accelerate delivery times to people. So you won't have to go for that top-up order to the grocery store in the near future. With Goodfood, we'll be able to service that kind of last-minute order on a pretty frequent basis across all the major cities in Canada. The other major trend that we see continuing and accelerating is really a concept called the grocerant. It's a little bit more popular in other parts of the world. I would say Whole Foods has a good example of it in the US. For those who have visited Whole Foods or know the company well, it essentially combines the best of what a restaurant would be able to service in terms of freshness and quality and price of food in the grocery store. So you're able to either drive traffic to the grocery store to get their lunch order or dinner order plus their shopping, or vice versa. You're able to kind of upsell them a piece of pizza or a sandwich or a salad or something like that as you're shopping. The Canadian industry right now, grocery industry, has very mediocre restaurant type meal offerings, and they're very expensive. So a big part of Goodfood's push is setting up cloud kitchens across the country. We have 2 right now, and we have multiple other ones under construction. And this allows us to provide restaurant quality meals at essentially grocery store prices, and take advantage of the merging of what it means to be a grocer in the future. The last thing I just wanted to end on is for Goodfood, obviously, like we're thinking big, we're thinking broad. We're very happy to be called a Canadian success. We think there's a lot of room in front of us, and the team is extremely excited about the future of the grocery business in Canada. The driving mission that we have is to be in every kitchen every day. So we continue to broaden the assortment, the price points, the offerings, to make sure that we can meet that promise. Back to you, Steven.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Neil. That was amazing, and congratulations for all the success you've already had, and looking forward to seeing it continue to grow in the future. And it's first of all, we have a lot of great questions, so we're going to get to the questions right away. And I think that the more I think about it, it's really interesting how you and Eran work together here, because the future, everything's changing, right? And we've seen that during COVID. We've seen how people are eating differently, they're shopping differently, they're looking more into their health. So if we can tailor what people eat and have it delivered to our house, I mean, soon we won't have to do anything. Maybe someone can come and do the dishes for us too, and then we're all set, right? Okay, so all jokes aside, we are going to go to some questions. And again, it's not too late. You can always throw something in the chat or email jan@weizmann.ca, and we'll try to get to as many as possible. There's a lot for Eran and Neil, and so we'll try to, maybe keep the answers brief as well. So I'll just go, and Eran or Neil, you can jump in here. Goodfood, have you considered working with Weight Watchers to provide meals?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we have been approached, and we have conversations with Weight Watchers and other types of organizations like them, the Canadian Diabetes Association, things like that. So we definitely have conversations ongoing. One of the challenges that we have with the demand of the product is just staying focused. So although these partnerships are really exciting and interesting to us, we tend to kind of delay them for the time being. With the growth in the team over the last couple of years, we've been able to start to entertain more and more of them. And our competitor, or one of our competitors in the US, has a pretty successful plan with Weight Watchers. So it's something that we're interested in doing for sure, just not on the map right now.
Perfect. Of course, you're going to have some FODMAP, great FODMAP foods, with garlic-free, onion-free sauces coming soon from Fody. Okay, we won't go there. Eran, I understand that the app for the personalized nutrition project is not yet available in Canada. What would you recommend for Canadians, including myself, so that we can begin personalizing our own respective diets?
Yeah, it's a good question. Following our discoveries, the Weizmann Institute has spun off the discoveries into a company named Dayton, D-A-Y-T-W-O. You can check them out at day2.com. And the company has been doing a great job in taking our discoveries and further improving the technologies in order to make them available and suitable for very large numbers of customers. The company is currently available in the US and in Israel. It's coming to the UK and to Japan very soon in the next couple of months. And then it will follow up probably with the EU. I don't know about Canada, but it's true that currently, unless you use a US address, you would not be able to connect with them online. But we've also highlighted a much simpler daily solution that could be utilized by people who are interested to make small changes that would be very impactful to their diet and to their health without having to go to the fancy technologies and sequencing that are offered by Day2 and by us. And what you can do is you can buy a very simple glucose monitor, glucose sensor at your nearby pharmacy, and basically try to see your response to any daily food that you would like to test on yourself. So a person can go, and usually people surprisingly incorporate about 50 to 60 different foods in their daily diet, not more. And you can basically consume a dietary compound, measure your blood sugar spikes or your blood sugar responses, and document them. And if you can see that for some reason, one of your favorite foods causes a very big spike in blood sugar, you can mix and match that food with other combinations in order to find a better combination that would suit your blood sugar spike and your food. And this kind of low-tech but very readily available do-it-yourself methodology, in my view, is also something that people can try on themselves until the more extensive and fancy and science-driven methodology introduced by Day2 comes to your own country.
Great. Well, we'll in Canada, we'll look for that Day2 app to come out, and I'm sure if you're members of Weizmann or you get the mailings, I'm sure Susan would be happy to make sure that we let everybody know as soon as that is available. A question for me: your products for those with IBS and other sensitivities are interesting. Are the foods that are not in your products, like onion and garlic, common IBS problem ingredients? Are the problem ingredients unique to each individual? Yes, everything's unique to, that's the name of the game today. It's really about uniqueness to each individual. The way the low FODMAP diet works, and I won't go into the detail of it, but it's really an elimination diet. So you eliminate all the high FODMAP ingredients. There is an app with the Monash app, MONASH, which is an amazing app that basically will show you the FODMAP levels of every single food that's been tested. That could be fruits, vegetables, and other. And you figure out, you eliminate all, and then you reintroduce them one grouping at a time. So you'll know, okay, onion and garlic are not my problem, but if I eat more than 1/8 of an avocado, that's where I trigger my issues. Or sugar alcohols are my problem, but my wife can't eat garlic and onion, or my husband can't eat that. So that's really about figuring out what your triggers are. And I'm just going to go through these quickly because there's so many questions and we only have 11 minutes left. To Neil, you kind of answered this, but I'll ask you again here. In the future, will Goodfood cater to other diets like paleo, gluten-free, etc.? If so, when can we expect to see this?
Yes, we're excited about right now. The way we're expanding our in-house meals is looking at different parts of the day, as I mentioned. So we recently launched holiday plans, dinner appetizers. We have brunch menu now. We're going to be doing a pizza bar in the coming weeks as well. So we've been going for different occasions, but definitely as we continue to grow and understand our customer base, we'll add more specifics. I see in the chat there's a lot of questions about kosher as well. Despite 35% of our culinary development team being Jewish, we don't offer a full kosher plan yet, but there's a lot of internal demand for it at the same time. So something we'll get to at some point.
Okay, there's a question here about dementia. Are there specific microbiome components, I guess this is for you, Eran, that lead to dementia or prevent dementia? A follow-up question would be infants who are delivered by cesarean and are not breastfed do not have a microbiome from the mother. How do they acquire one then? And it has recently been reported that stevia consumption can damage the microbiome. How true is this? So it's all from, I don't know, these are all different questions, so maybe I'm mixing them up, but let's go with the first one, Eran. Dementia, are there specific microbiome components that would lead to dementia or prevent dementia?
Yeah, this is a very good question that's at the heart of where the field is going right now. The concept of what we call the gut-brain axis has been discovered just 3 or 4 years ago. And basically what it means is that we increasingly have evidence for specific small molecules produced by distinct bacteria in our gut in impacting functions that are very far away from where the actual bacteria live. So for example, if you refer to dementia, there's a very interesting set of studies on Alzheimer's disease in trying to understand whether the microbes that live in the gut would secrete small molecules that could potentially impact the development of Alzheimer towards preserved neuronal function or preserved mental capacity. And we're actually one of the leaders in conducting this research. The jury is still out there, but there's increased evidence that these connections between our gut microbes and functions related to our brain are important and may enable us to introduce a whole set of new classes of anti-Alzheimer or anti-brain disease medications in the next decade of research.
Excellent. I guess there was a follow-up question there related to infants. I mean, not related, of course. Infants who are delivered by C-section and are not breastfed, do not have a microbiome from the mother. How do they acquire one then?
Yeah, so another very good question. So what we know today is that babies are usually born sterile. Babies do not have any microbes in or on them while they're in their mother's womb. And once they go through the birth canal, they acquire their microbiome from their mother, from their father, from their immediate environment, until by the age of 2 to 3, they acquire their adult configuration of a microbiome. Now, this is what happens during normal delivery. When you're talking about a cesarean section, something completely different happens. And the first microbes that these children see are actually their mother's skin microbes. So if you measure the gut of kids that are born by cesarean section, in the first weeks of life, you actually would find skin microbes in their gut coming all from their mothers as part of the cesarean section delivery process. But within a few months, they acquired their regular gut microbiome. Whether this transient abnormal acquisition of microbes in the very first period of life has an effect on health and disease later on in life for these kids is an open question with many different opinions related to it. The jury is still out there. There is no good enough proof, in my view, that cesarean section and the transient microbiome colonization associated with it predisposes to future diseases such as asthma in kids, but the jury is still out there.
Fantastic. We have I think we have time for maybe 2 or 3 more questions max, but we'll try to get to just getting back to the app. I think Eran, it's called the Day 2 app, and it is available, like you mentioned, in the US. It's available in Israel. It's soon to be available in the UK, and it's based on your research. So maybe you just want to spend a few seconds about what the Day 2 app, and because I think that could be helping a lot of people in the future.
Right. So well, the study that I described to you was based on 1,000 individuals. At the time, it was the largest microbiome study ever published. The Day2 company that licensed this technology has now acquired data from over 100,000 people that have undergone through the same process. So the database that is now available to fine-tune the recommendations is unimaginably large and of high quality. And what this allows Day2, with our help, to do is to minimize the amount of data that we need to acquire from every new individual in giving him or her an accurate set of recommendations based on their own data. In other words, today we don't need to connect people to a glucose monitor. We don't need to collect all of these painful questionnaires. We just need to take their stool sample and to complement it with some basic questionnaires that they answer online in order to provide them with a very accurate recommendation set through the app. What the app does is give you these recommendations in a very user-friendly manner, enables you to mix and match your meals, to choose through menus provided in many different restaurants, to choose the right brand in your supermarket, and so on and so forth.
Awesome, that's great. Just a few more. Neil, I have to read this one just because it's, you got to hear the good stuff too. My daughter is one of your biggest fans. She has tried multiple food delivery services and has told me that your company is by far the best one. So a little plug for Goodfood there. And I know a lot of people around the country are very, very happy about Goodfood. So thank you for that. We mentioned a lot of the kosher questions. There was a question about the app that I mentioned about FODMAP, and that is the Monash app, and MONASH, nothing to do with Fody, but it's an incredible resource for people that want to understand. You might ask yourself, why does that food always bother me? You go onto the Monash app and it'll say, oh, I see what it is. Like it's that's the problem. And so like for me personally, I can't eat watermelon, I get bloated. Watermelon is very high in FODMAP. A lot of people think watermelon is just water. So that's that. Let me see if we have any other questions here. Can someone address small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, SIBO? Eran, did you want to, and that's a long question. I don't know if we have time to go into SIBO right now. But
yeah, I'll give you a one-line answer. The small intestine being less readily available for research because it's less accessible has been sort of a black box in the first decade of microbiome research. In the last year, we and many others have been increasingly focusing on this incredibly important part of the gastrointestinal tract. We are studying it in the context of SIBO, in other contexts. We find it to be very different than the large intestine and very important for our understanding of different interventions associated with the microbiome. The next decade will highlight lots of discoveries related to the small intestine.
Amazing, amazing. Okay, so we're almost at the hour. I want to thank Eran so much and Neil. Totally very uplifting, both of you guys. You're truly both awesome, and I can't wait to meet you in person one day, maybe in those Alps, so at the behind you. And again, thank you very much, Susan, for having me and for all of us here at the Weizmann event. And I will now pass it back to you.
Thank you so much, Steven. And thank you all for joining us today. Sincere thank you to Eran, Neil, Steven. So much learning for all of us. A recording of this presentation will also be sent out to all attendees in today's webinar. And if you have any additional questions or questions we didn't get to, please feel free to reach out to any of us at Weizmann Canada, and we will make sure to get your answers. I'm also really grateful to our team, our leadership, and our colleagues at Weizmann who help make events like these possible. To learn more about the organization and some of the recent scientific breakthroughs that have a global impact, please visit our website at weizmann.ca. And please follow us on your favorite social media channels to stay connected so you're always aware of upcoming events and recent news from our scientists. Most importantly, stay well, stay safe, and we look forward to seeing you at a future event. Thank you so much and have a great rest of the day.